Good morning, everyone, and welcome into this day with Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, you are welcome here. My name is Walter Parsons, and I'm a member here at QUUF. I'd like to begin this service by acknowledging that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chimicum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help them restore and sustain their homelands. As we call in our time together, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts by ringing of our chime. It's good to be together. I'd like to welcome Pat Rodgers and the Quimper Quartet now as they sing our call to community. Hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I make my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dreams and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Thank you, Sarah, Pat, Doug, and Al. Please join me now in our chalice lighting words. As the seasons turn and summer brings light and growth, we light this candle to honor the fecundity of all the earth. May warmth and light brighten our hearts. We welcome summer with open arms. A Summer Day by Oscar Williams. There is a snowfall of daylight in my room. Higher and higher it piles. It falls on everything, deep into the glow of wood, into the crevices it flies. Into the shine of rug, up the books, against the walls, sloping down mind in blue air, layer after layer, mount these flakes of radiance, drifting everywhere, until I'm suffocated under the snow hills of light, and my veins would freeze, and I'd be buried, but that I run for shelter under the deep awnings of green trees. And now I'd like to acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us today. You're invited to say hello in the comment section and tell us your name and where you're from. The comment section can be found below or on the right side of the video when it's out of full screen. And we'd love to hear from you. So welcome, everyone. We're glad you're with us today. We'll now receive the offering, which today goes to support our programming, our staff, building here at QUUF. If you'd like to donate today, you have three options. Text the amount you'd like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of the screen. Or go to our website, QUUF.org, and click on the giving link. Or simply mail a check to QUUF. Just remember to put offering in the memo line. We will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Pamela Roberts and Helen Lauritzen play the Swan from the Carnival of Animals. Thank you, Pamela and Helen. We'll now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone, thinking in particular of our country as it navigates the truth of the January 6th uprising. May our ears be open and our hearts ready to heal. Now we light a candle for all the QUUF members who are attending our General Assembly. May what they learn be brought back to our community. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence. Our reading today is an excerpt from Song of Believing by the late Northwest poet Brian Doyle from his book, One Long River of Song. It'll be read by our guest speaker, Reverend Florence Caplow.
I'd like to share this reading by Brian Doyle. As a quavery chant against the dark, I sing a song of things that make us grin and bow, that just for an instant, let us see sometimes the web and weave of merciful, the endless possible, the incomprehensible, inexhaustible, inexplicable, yes, such as, for example, to name a few, the way the sun crawls over the rim of the world every morning, like a child's face rising, beaming from a pool, all fresh from the womb of the dark. And the way jays hop and damselflies do that geometric arrow amazing thing. And the way the young mother at the bus stop has her infant swaddled and huddled against her chest like a blinking extra heart. And the way a very large woman wears the tiniest miniskirt with a careless, airy pride that makes me so happy I can hardly squeak. And the ways seals peer at me owlishly from the surf like rubbery grandfathers. And the way cormorants in the ocean never get caught by onrushing waves, but disappear casually at the last possible second. So you see their headlong black stories written on the wet walls of the sea like moist petroglyphs. And the way no pavement, asphalt, macadam, concrete, cement thing can ultimately defeat a tiny green thing. And the way people sometimes lean eagerly face first into the future. And the way infants finally discover to their absolute agogishment that those fists swooping by like tiny fleshy comments are theirs. And the way the refrigerator hums to itself in two different keys. And the way a new puppy noses through hayfields like a headlong, exuberant, hairy tractor. And the way crows arrange themselves sometimes on the fence like notes of a song I don't know yet. And the way car engines sigh for a few minutes after you turn them off. And the way your arm goes all totally nonchalant when you were driving through summer with the window down. and the way people touch each other's forearms when they're scared. And the way every once in a while, someone you hardly know says something so piercingly honest that you want to kneel down right there in the grocery store near the pears. And the way little children fall asleep with their mouths open like fish. And the way hawks and eagles always look so annoyed. And the way people shuffle daintily on icy pavements. And the way churches smell dense with hope. And the way faces curve around the mouth and eyes according to how many times you smiled over the years. And the way people fall asleep in chairs by the fire and then snap awake, startled and amazed, unsure just for a second what planet exactly they are on, which is a question we should probably ask far more often than we do. Look, I know very well that brooding, misshapen evil is everywhere, in the brightest houses and the most cheerful denials, in what we do and what we have failed to do. And I know all too well that the story of the world is entropy. Things fall apart. We sicken. We fail. We grow weary. We divorce. We are hammered and hounded by loss and accidents and tragedies. But I also know, with all my hoary, muddled heart, that we are carved of immense, confusing holiness.
Our special music today is Awake by Peter Mayer.
Clouds are swift, rocks are ancient, mountains are high, oceans gray, winds are restless, trees are patient. You, my child, are away. Waves are crashing, rivers churning, planets twirling, stars ablaze. Storms are raging, atoms whirling. You, my child, are away. To perceive these wondrous things, to count the beats of a blackbird's wings, to tell a story and dance and say. All the splendors of creation, very happy that you came, 'cause they needed someone to see them. You, my child, are away. To perceive these wondrous things, to count the beats of a blackbird's wings, to tell a story and dance and say. Seeds are hopeful, dewdrops fleeting, oak trees crooked, redwoods stray, and they are not known to the sleeping, but you, my child, are awake. You, my child, are awake. You, my child.
It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Florence Caplow. She was our intern minister when she was in the seminary, and this was under Bruce in 2014 and 2015. She then came back to us for a year as our first assistant minister after serving a small UU congregation in western Colorado. She then moved to the Midwest to support her mother, and then in her late 80s, and was called as the lead minister of a UU congregation in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. In 2021, she was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and is currently focused on regaining her health. Those who know her know she's also a climate activist, Zen teacher and writer, and a former field botanist. Here's Florence.
Good morning. As you can see, I am not in the pulpit at QUUF, but rather on the porch of my retreat cottage on the southern Washington coast. But I send all my love and best wishes your way, and I am so happy to be speaking to you, even though I really wish COVID had allowed us to be together in person. As you heard earlier, though many of you may not know me, QUUF was a very big part of my life and my formation as a UU minister. And you are still very much in my heart. And I know things have been hard there, not just 2+ years of pandemic, but losing a beloved, settled minister too soon, and tensions and divisions within the congregation. I hope that this service will lift your hearts a little and give you some resources to weather this time and perhaps other hard times in your life. Before I speak on my theme today, I want to start by acknowledging that this Sunday, right now, the closing worship of the UUA General Assembly is happening in Portland. General Assembly, or GA for short, is the annual gathering of thousands of UUs across the country. I'm sure there are people from here, there, right now. 7 years ago, which was the last time General Assembly was in Portland, I was there with a whole bunch of you. You know who you are, and we did some great things there, didn't we? We helped draft and pass a resolution of support for the Lummi Nation and its work to stop the Cherry Point coal terminal, which, incidentally, was ultimately successful. It was a wonderful time there together. Last year, when GA was virtual, and it has been virtual for the last 2 years, you all were watching the closing worship on this Sunday in June. I feel a little chagrined to be the one speaking to you this year. One of my favorite colleagues will be giving the closing sermon this year, Reverend Gretchen Haley. And if you do a little internet search after this service for UU General Assembly Sunday service, I think you'll probably find an archived version of it. I really recommend watching it. It will give you a sense of the larger movement. I just want to say a little something about the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, for those of you who might not be so familiar with it, or our many acronyms. I think sometimes new UUs coming from more traditional religious backgrounds are surprised to learn that each UU congregation is independent and self-governing. But that's only half the story. What we really are is interdependent. No congregation is truly alone, and thank goodness for that. Instead, we are part of an association of congregations, and GA is a powerful expression of a true representative democracy where delegates who have been entrusted to vote by their congregations chart the course forward, who we are in the sense of the living, ever-evolving shape of Unitarian Universalism. In the relatively brief time that I have been a minister, I have been so moved and inspired by the courage that this collective has shown. And then there are the people, the staff of the UUA, who work tirelessly, truly, to support and heal and help hundreds of congregations and their leaders. I, personally, and the congregations I've served, have been supported in so many ways by UUA staff. My gratitude is literally boundless. I hope you know that they are there for you too, as you weather these rough waters. They are there for congregations and their leaders. I'm recording this on the porch of this little cottage on Willapa Bay. For 18 years, I have come here for some part of every year, except for 2020. And some of you have been here too, since it is a regular item on the QUUF service auction. It is a place of deep peace and beauty. I have come here raw and sad, joyous and celebratory, on silent retreats and with beloved friends and family. It was here that I heard that my father had died 7 years ago. I have come here in good health and less than good health. But whatever is happening, this place nourishes and renews my spirit if I remember to really let it in, really savor its subtle and powerful beauty. In January last year, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is a bear of disease. The high-tech medications and other interventions have worked really pretty well for the symptoms of joint inflammation, but they have left me profoundly fatigued. It has become impossible to continue full-time lead ministry, which, for all of its joys, is an incredibly intense job, requiring a clear head, nerves of steel, and a capacity to catch whatever comes your way with kindness and compassion. It requires a fully functioning, highly energetic human being. I don't know what my future holds. I hope that I am able to reverse this fatigue, but I think this diagnosis will be a force in my life from now on, shaping what I can and cannot do. And for now, ministry is not an option. There is loss and grief in that. I love ministry. And yet, here I am on this June day, wind in the spruces, eagles calling, and the sweet light of the coast filling my spirit. For decades, as many of you know, I have taught and practiced mindfulness, which is the simple awareness of what is actually happening moment to moment. Simple and surprisingly difficult awareness. But recently, I have been reminded of a practice that takes mindfulness to another level, the practice of savoring. And as a person in a difficult time in my life, exploring this practice has meant a lot to me. And so I want to share it with you. The first time I heard of this practice was 20 years ago from the Zen teacher, Darlene Cohen, who coincidentally had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis herself in her early adulthood. She practiced in the middle of pain for most of her life, and she had discovered more or less on her own that the best way to work with pain was to open up to the experience of pleasure, simple pleasure, the pleasure of a soft fabric, of a comfortable chair, of seeing a smile on a friend's face, of birdsong. She became a connoisseur of pleasure, a cultivator of pleasure, not trying to pretend that the pain wasn't there, but deliberately paying attention to the non-pain parts of her life. She didn't use the word savor, but that's what it was, savoring. Perhaps when you hear the word savor, something delicious comes to mind, maybe a flourless chocolate cake. And it does mean taste from the old French, but also appreciating something to the full, to linger over something wonderful, looking a little more deeply. Savor comes from the Latin sapio. And yes, that's the root of sapiens as well, as in Homo sapiens. And in that case, it means wise or discerning. So to savor is to practice something wise as well as delicious. In the last 15 years or so, savoring has become a sub-area of the study of positive human experiences and states. And it turns out to be kind of magical. But before I tell you about its benefits, I want to give you a direct experience of it. Right now, you can look away from me and look around the space that you're in, inside or outside the window, and find something on the walls or outside that gives you pleasure to look at, that is beautiful to you. Or perhaps there's an animal or even a person near you that you can touch gently, and it gives you pleasure to be in contact with them. I'll give you a moment. Hopefully you've found something. It can be a very simple thing. And please stay connecting with it as I speak. Normally our attention, even in mindfulness, just flips over things, even something we find beautiful. We don't spend the time to really be with it. But this time, I want you to look or feel more deeply, really noticing the qualities of this object, the vividness of the color, the feel against your hand, whatever it might be. What is it that brings happiness to you about this object? What do you see when you look more deeply? What do you feel when you feel more deeply? Just take a few breaths and really explore seeing, hearing, feeling, whatever it might be. Are you grateful for this object in your life? Let that bubble up too. Feel that the experience is filling your mind and body, like the sun's warmth on your back or water soaking into a sponge. Just keep relaxing your body and really absorbing the gift of this object and this experience. And that's it. I know what you're thinking. What's the big deal about that? It was like 20 seconds. It didn't take any fancy technology or special spiritual abilities. How could that make a difference? Well, you savored in 4 different ways. First, you identified something that brings happiness or pleasure deliberately. Secondly, you stayed with that experience and looking and feeling and appreciating it more deeply. Third, you noticed whatever gratitude came up in that experience. And finally, fourth, you really let it soak in. And how do you feel now? Any differently than before? Research has shown that if you do this even a few times a day, just for less than a minute, amazing shifts start to happen. It doesn't matter how old you are or what kinds of troubles you have. Life gets better. Addictions ease. Your difficulties are easier to bear. You don't have to believe me about this. You can go read the studies yourself, or just try it. Try it for a few days and see what happens. I wanted to share that reading by the late Brian Doyle, because his writing, ever since I first encountered it in a book that somehow fell into my hands in Bruce Bodie's magically chaotic home office, his writing makes me feel a poignant, tearful, heartful, edge of tears love for this ordinary, amazing world and its people, where I feel bigger too and more connected. I think he knew a thing or two about savoring. And by the way, so does the writer Ross Gay in his Book of Delights. These writers are good medicine for us, especially at this time, because in this world so filled with fear and dissension, even in this little paradise where you get to live, more appreciation is desperately needed. I wanted to share some writing by your fantastic religious educator, Bo. He shared this on Facebook a while ago, and I asked his permission to share it with you today, because this is what I'm talking about. I want you to notice where there is savoring here. The last few years, I've been working on my own words of appreciation, texting friends after we spend time together to let them know how much that meant to me. Savoring. Writing letters to my kids and youth so they have some record of how amazing they are. Savoring. And trying to look up a bit more when I am out and ensure that I say warm welcomes to people I see. I've actively put time into this shift after witnessing some people be truly great at this skill and realizing that's how I want to exist in the world, expressing my very genuine appreciation for people. He goes on to say, this last week, I went to a play in Seattle and was impressed by one of the performers, remembering a time when I was 14 and got a letter from someone who was likely a friend of my mom, because who isn't, but who was a stranger to me, that said, and I can quote this directly because it made such an impact, to put it plainly, in pink, you stole the show. In that vein, I sent this performer an email expressing my gratitude for their art. They wrote back with gushing appreciation for my appreciation and added quotes from my email to their website. Love is an extrapolating force. This isn't a story about me so much as a battle cry for love and appreciation. Lots of stuff in the world can be tense and worrisome, but radical love is not. It's only a force for good. Well, Bo, I couldn't have put it better myself. And I think this is a key to healing, to loving each other across difference, which is so much of what we're about as Unitarian Universalists. And it's also a key to the healing in our own lives. So I invite you to savor each other, savor this beautiful town, and that you are in community here. Savor the simple things and know that my blessings are with you. I want to close with a poem by Marge Piercy, part of a poem from, the poem is The Art of Blessing the Day. Here's a few words from it. But the discipline of blessings is to taste each moment, the bitter, the sour, the sweet, and the salty, and be glad for what does not hurt. The art is in compressing attention to each little and big blossom of the tree of life, to let the tongue sing each fruit, its savor, its aroma, and its use. All my blessings to you, my dear ones.
Our closing hymn today is hymn number 323, Break Not the Circle, sung by the First Unitarian Church of Baltimore.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not the circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wander at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly be themselves, stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Before we extinguish our chalice, I want to remind you that Carl Bach will be our guest speaker next Sunday. He'll be preaching on patriotism, one person's view. I hope you can join us. And now let us join voices in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. After the service, I hope you will join us for our virtual coffee hour. What you can expect is a personal check-in and reflections on the service. And we'll do this in community. I hope to see you there. First, let us turn our attention to Bruno Mars, who will sing our postlude today, Count on Me.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you. Like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh, yeah. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 'cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. You'll always have my shoulder when you cry. I'll never let go, never say goodbye. You know you can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh.